Hello, all. Today we will be starting our discussion on the topic of elasticity. Now, I'm assuming that most of you, hopefully not all of you, but probably most of you, have not heard of this term elasticity before, and this will be the first time you're dealing with this concept. So, before we get started, let me just assure you guys, and I'm sure you've all heard this already in the previous 3 weeks, is that Eco 101 is basically a study of common sense. So everything that we talk about in Eco 101, you guys already know. There's nothing new here. So for example, you guys learned about the law of demand about, I think, 2 weeks ago. The law of demand simply tells us that when price goes up, how much we buy of a good goes down and vice versa. Now, of course, you learned it in a formal setup. There were maybe formulas, there were diagrams, there were analysis of the diagrams, mathematical calculations, and all of that. But at the end of the day, all of you knew the law of demand. Every time you guys spent money to buy something, that was law of demand right there. If price went up, you guys bought less of a good, and if price went down, you guys bought more of a good. You all knew the law of demand already. You all knew the law of supply already. And you guys will see that the same uh, practice will carry on through for the rest of the semester, as in everything we talk about in economics is in Eco 101, in Introduction to Microeconomics, is common sense. So this word elasticity may be something you have not encountered before. Maybe you don't know what it means. And of course, we're going to be introducing formulas, and there's going to be calculations involved and analysis involved, and all of that may seem a little daunting. But at the end of the day, the intuition that you get from this chapter, elasticity, is something all of you already know. So I just wanted to let you guys know that this is a super interesting chapter. And at the same time, this is not something that's very difficult. This is something all of you know about already. It's just a matter of taking what we already know and putting it in a more formal setup, which allows us to conduct a bit more advanced level of analysis than what we do in our day-to-day lives. That's literally all of Eco 101, and that's obviously true for this chapter as well. So let's get started. So as you guys can see, we are going to be doing these four things in today's lecture. We're going to be having a small discussion on direction of a relationship and the scale of a relationship. So I'll discuss what that is soon enough, don't worry. So this will be a small 10-minute discussion maybe. Then we move on to the concept of responsiveness and elasticity. So that too will be a small discussion, maybe about 10 minutes or so. And then finally, I'm going to introduce four different types of elasticities that we are going to be concerned with for the rest of this course. Uh, and then we will learn how to calculate these elasticities. And that will be the end of today's lecture. Today, of course, is the beginning of week 4. Uh, in our next lecture, we're going to talk about different factors that affect the elasticity. And then once we have learned what elasticity is, how to calculate elasticities, and what factors may increase or decrease elasticity, we are going to come to point number 6, where we use elasticity to analyze the market. So you guys have already learned how to analyze the market using basically demand and supply analysis and equilibrium analysis. What happens when, let's say, price level change, what happens when the curve shifts, and so on and so forth. What we are going to do is we are going to introduce elasticity into that framework, And what that will do is it's going to make our analysis more stronger and more richer. Okay. And then finally, in the next lecture, the first lecture of week 5 of this semester, I'm going to be solving a few problems from the book. So maybe I'll solve 3, 4, or 5 problems from the book, and then I will mark out a few more problems for you guys to solve in your own times. Okay. So let's get started with number 1, which is basically direction versus scales.